The wind carried the scent of pine and damp earth as 10-year-old Lina wandered deeper into the forest behind her grandmother's house. It was supposed to be a simple afternoon. Just a few hours of mushroom picking with her sketchbook and a sandwich in her backpack. But curiosity had tugged her away from the trail. First to a squirrel's nest, then to a brook, then to silence. And in that silence, she heard it. A soft, broken whimper. She froze. It wasn't the sound of a bird or a squirrel. It wasn't even the yelp of a dog. It was something raw, something wild, but weak, like it was trying not to cry too loudly. Lina crept toward the sound, her sneakers crunching softly on twigs and leaves. The forest thickened around her. Then, beneath a tangle of fallen branches and moss, she saw it. A bundle of gray fur, curled in pain, barely breathing. A wolf cub. Its leg was twisted unnaturally, matted with dried blood and forest grime. One eye was swollen shut. The other, golden and glistening, locked with hers. They stared at each other. She didn't scream. She didn't run. And the cub didn't snarl. Instead, it whimpered again, softer this time, as if asking for help. Lina knelt beside it, heart thudding in her chest. She slowly took off her red scarf and reached for its leg. "It's okay," she whispered, not sure if she was saying it to the cub or to herself. "I won't hurt you." The cub flinched but didn't bite. Using her scarf and a stick, she fashioned a makeshift splint for its leg. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than nothing. She offered it the last bit of her sandwich. It sniffed, licked her fingers, and ate. Night came fast in the forest. Lina knew she couldn't carry the cub back through the dark. So she stayed. She built a little lean-to from branches and dry leaves. She wrapped herself around the cub, whispering stories to it beneath the moonlight. She named him Echo. By morning, Echo had enough strength to limp beside her. Lina led the way, retracing her steps, hoping someone had noticed she hadn't come home. She didn't expect to see a wolf. A large one, watching from the shadows. Lina froze. Echo let out a weak cry. The big wolf stepped forward, eyes locked on the cub, then on her. Lina braced herself. But the wolf didn't attack. It nuzzled Echo, licked his face. Then, unbelievably, it turned to Lina and sniffed her hand. For a second, it rested its head against her shoulder, just once. A silent gesture. Then it disappeared into the trees, taking Echo with it. Lina stood there, stunned, with nothing but Echo's warmth still lingering in her arms. It took another hour before the search team found her. Her parents were sobbing. Her grandmother fainted. They asked her what happened, and she told them. No one believed the wolf part. Until the footage surfaced. One of the rangers had body cam footage of the moment they found her. In the background, barely noticeable, 2 wolves, one limping, watched from the ridge before vanishing into the fog. The clip went viral. "She saved a wild animal, and it chose to return to the wild," one headline read. "Real-life Little Red and the Wolf," another claimed. But Lina didn't care about the internet. She missed him. Years passed. Lina grew taller, quieter. But every autumn, she returned to the forest alone. She brought a scarf and a sandwich. She'd leave them on a mossy rock near the ridge and sit for hours, sketching trees, listening to the wind. One day, on the cusp of her 16th birthday, she heard a sound she hadn't heard in 6 years, a low, familiar whine. She turned, and there he was. Echo, fully grown, scar over his eye, limp still in his step, and beside him, 2 smaller cubs. He approached slowly, head bowed, eyes searching hers like he couldn't believe it was really her. She dropped her sketchbook, fell to her knees. He nuzzled into her arms. Tears streamed down her face. The forest held its breath. That moment became a mural in town. Lina and the wolf who never forgot. It became legend. But to her, it wasn't a story. It was a promise returned. Echo came back to say, I remember. And Lina whispered back, I never forgot. The last rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, painting the old forest in shades of amber and quiet sorrow. Lina's small footsteps came to a halt. Her heart pounded in her chest. That sound again. Fragile. Broken. Like a cry trying hard not to be heard. Rose from behind a dense thicket. She didn't move. Just stood there. Still as a shadow. Her ears strained against the hush of the woods. Then it came again. A whimper. Faint and aching. It wasn't an owl. Not a squirrel. Not a fox. Lina swallowed hard and stepped forward. Gently, she parted the leaves and branches. And there, she saw it. A wolf pup. No bigger than a pillow, curled up in a nest of moss and dry sticks. One hind leg twisted unnaturally, swollen and bleeding. Its fur was matted with dirt and dried blood. One eye was shut tight. But the other, golden, glassy, stared right at her. In that wild silence between predator and child, the world seemed to hold its breath. Lina didn't scream. She didn't turn and run like any child might. She knelt, slowly, soft as falling snow. What are you doing here all alone? She whispered, voice trembling but without fear. The pup didn't growl, didn't flinch. It whimpered again, quieter this time, like it was asking her, please, don't leave me. Lina pulled off her red wool scarf. Her hands trembled, but her eyes stayed steady. She tore the scarf into strips and picked up a slender stick, makeshift splint. Her fingers fumbled, but her resolve didn't. I know it hurts, she murmured, but I'll be gentle. Okay? The pup gave a small shake of its ears, but didn't pull away. She finished wrapping the leg, her breath shaky. When she drew her hand back, she paused, half expecting the worst. A second passed. Then, the wolf pup leaned forward and licked her fingers. Not out of fear, not aggression, but gently. Lina's eyes welled with tears, not from terror, but from something else, something sacred, trust. In that moment, deep in the quiet woods, a wild creature reached out, not with claws or teeth, but with a gesture of connection. You didn't bite me, she whispered, voice cracking. So, I guess that means we're friends now. The pup blinked once, and there they sat, two fragile souls, one human and one wild, bonded not by language or logic, but by something purer, by belief in each other. The last bandage was tied. It wasn't perfect. Lina's hands were trembling. The stick she'd used as a splint was crooked, and the strip of scarf kept slipping. But the pup didn't protest. He lay there, breathing heavily, his golden eye still watching her, never blinking. You're going to be okay, she whispered, more to reassure herself than him. She brushed some dirt from his fur, gently combing the tangles with her fingers. For a wild animal, he didn't resist. He was tired. Too tired. Lina could see it in his chest, rising and falling like someone trying hard not to give in. She looked up. The sky had turned a bruised purple. The sun had bled into the horizon without her noticing. Shadows stretched long and thin across the trees. She should have gone back hours ago. But how could she leave him? She tried to lift him. Her small arms wrapped around his soft body, legs braced against the earth. The pup whimpered as his injured leg brushed her coat. Lina winced. Sorry, she murmured. Just a little more. She managed to lift him onto her back, arms locked beneath his paws. He was heavier than he looked. Bones and fur and warmth bundled against her spine. She staggered forward, pushing through brush and briars, retracing her steps as best she could. But the forest had changed. Everything looked different under the dying light. And then, the wind picked up. The kind of wind that made trees whisper things you didn't want to hear. Branches creaked above her like old bones. Lina stopped. She didn't know where the trail was anymore. Her legs ached. Her breath came in ragged gulps. And still, on her back, he breathed, trusting her without words. She looked around, then made a decision. They wouldn't make it out tonight. She would stay. She found a cluster of trees with thick fallen branches and hollow leaves, a patch of dry ground. With numb fingers, she gathered what she could: bark, ferns, moss, and began to build a tiny shelter. A lean-to. Slanted and uneven, but it would hold against the wind. She laid the pup down carefully in the center, then crawled in beside him. The forest hushed around them. The wind howled above, but the lean-to held. Lina pulled him close. His heartbeat was soft against her arm. His fur, though damp and dirty, was warm. The moon filtered down through the branches, scattering silver light like spilled dust. The air smelled like pine and earth and breath. Somewhere, an owl called. A branch snapped in the distance. She didn't sleep. Not really. But she closed her eyes, pressed her cheek against his head, and whispered stories into the night. Stories about little girls and wolves and how sometimes they saved each other. And in that fragile silence between fear and comfort, something bloomed. A bond neither of them had chosen, but both had needed. She didn't know his name, but somehow, she felt like he knew hers. The first light of morning seeped through the cracks in the forest canopy, touching the world in hushes of gold and frost. Lina's eyes fluttered open, heavy with sleep and dew. Her cheek still rested against the wolf pup's fur, and, for a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the stillness reminded her. The cold, the ache in her limbs, the whisper of leaves above, and the steady, small breath beside her. She sat up slowly. The pup, his legs still bound, lifted his head and blinked at her. There was no fear in his gaze. No flinch. Just quiet trust. It struck her how natural it now felt to be beside him, as if she hadn't just met him the night before, as if he had always been part of her world. "I guess we made it through the night, huh?" she whispered. He gave a soft grunt, almost like a sigh. Then he howled, but not a loud, savage cry like wolves in stories. This one was small, gentle, a breathy note that rose and fell like an echo across the trees. She looked at him, stunned, then smiled. "Echo," she said. "That's what I'll call you." His ears twitched at the sound, and just like that, the name became his. Miles away, panic spread like wildfire. Lina's parents were already on their third cup of coffee, untouched, staring at the empty path that led into the forest. Her grandmother sat on the porch, clutching the scarf Lina had left behind. No phone call, no signal, just silence. By noon, the town had mobilized. Volunteers fanned out across the trails. Park rangers checked every stream, every hill. Helicopters circled the woods, shouting her name. Drones buzzed through branches. Dogs barked, calling for one of their own. And yet, Lina was exactly where no one had thought to look. Not afraid, not alone, but somewhere deeper, somewhere quiet, somewhere between wild and wonder. She spent that morning feeding Echo crumbled granola from her pocket. He winced as he tried to stand, but when he did, wobbling slightly, tail twitching, Lina cheered like he had conquered Everest. "See? You're already getting stronger." He took a shaky step, then another. Each time he looked back at her, as if asking, "Are you watching?" And she always was. Their rhythm grew. Step, pause, breath. Step, pause, smile. He followed her to the creek, where she splashed water on his fur and cleaned the dried blood gently with her sleeve. He didn't resist. He didn't run. At one point, as she crouched beside him, Echo nudged his nose into her jacket and let out a sound like a sigh. Lina froze, then whispered, "You miss your family, don't you?" The pup didn't answer, but he didn't pull away. Neither did she. She was supposed to be found by now. The sun was already high, but she didn't want to move. Because for a few perfect hours, nothing else existed. Not the search teams, not the fear, not even the forest. Just a girl and a wolf who weren't supposed to meet, sitting side by side in a clearing as if the universe had bent the rules for one day only. The wind shifted. It was subtle at first, just a rustle in the treetops, a hush that seemed to fall over the clearing like a held breath. Echo froze. Lina noticed the change in him before she heard anything. His small body stiffened beside her, ears perked, nose twitching. His golden eyes stared past her, wide and alert. Then it came. A howl. Low. Powerful. Ancient. It rolled through the forest like thunder draped in sorrow, not angry, not threatening, but full of longing. It wasn't calling for a fight. It was calling for someone lost. Echo let out a soft, answering whimper. Lina turned toward the sound, her breath caught. Standing at the edge of the clearing, half shadow, half light, was a wolf. But not like Echo. This one was massive. Her fur was thick, ash gray and silver at the tips, her eyes glowing amber beneath the branches. She stood tall and still, watching them from across the clearing. Silent, regal, and radiating power that made the air crackle. Lina didn't move. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Every story she'd heard told her she was in danger. But Echo didn't move either, and neither did the mother. The pup took a shaky step forward, then looked back at Lina. Just once. As if to say, "Trust me." Then he limped toward her. The clearing was dead silent. The mother stepped forward to meet him. She lowered her head, sniffed him carefully, then, ever so gently, pressed her nose into his fur. A sound rumbled deep in her chest, something between relief and grief. She licked the top of his head, long and slow. And then, she turned her gaze to Lina. The forest seemed to tilt. Those golden eyes studied the girl with unnerving depth, ancient, calculating, wild. She took a cautious step closer. Lina didn't flinch. Her heartbeat was thudding so loud she was sure the world could hear it. The wolf approached. Closer. Closer. And then, she licked Lina's hand. Once. Rough and warm. Lina gasped, not in fear, but wonder. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a warning. It was a thank you. A gesture of recognition, from one mother to another, from the wild to the human. And then something even more impossible happened. The wolf laid down. Right there, in the moss and soil of the clearing. Echo curled beside her. And Lina slowly sat down too. 3 of them. Girl. Cub. Mother. Not predator and prey. Not girl and beast. Just family. The moment felt carved out of time, like the forest had paused to witness something sacred. A scene no one else would ever believe, let alone see. The pup resting between the 2 beings who had kept him alive. The girl with scratches on her hands, dirt on her knees, and eyes full of something the world rarely allowed. Peace. For the next few minutes, none of them moved. The wolf's breath rose and fell in rhythm with her son's. Lina rested her hand on Echo's back, her fingers tracing gentle lines in his fur. And for the first time in her life, she understood something no book had ever taught her. Sometimes, the wild doesn't need taming. It just needs someone brave enough to listen. The silence broke with a snap, a twig, then another. Voices. Far away at first, like echoes through a canyon, but growing louder. Closer. Lina sat upright. Her fingers instinctively tightened around Echo's fur. The mother wolf rose slowly, ears stiff, body coiled. not aggressive, but ready. Then came the dogs, barking from a distance, their sharp yelps cutting through the stillness like sirens in a storm. "Lina! Lina!" A man's voice, then a woman's, desperate, cracking from the inside. She stood up, waving her arms. "Here, I'm here." The wolf beside her stiffened. Echo whimpered and pressed himself against her leg. The brush parted, and in poured the world she had almost forgotten. Search and rescue uniforms, bright orange vests, flashlights, walkie-talkies. Her parents, eyes wide with disbelief, ran forward, then froze, because they weren't alone. In front of Lina, standing protectively, was the massive gray mother wolf. Between them, the battered pup. A ranger lifted his tranquilizer gun. "No, wait!" Lina shouted, jumping in front of the wolf. "Don't hurt her! She's not going to attack!" The wolf didn't move, didn't growl, but her eyes watched every gesture, ready to defend. The ranger hesitated. Her father stepped forward. "Lina, come here." Slowly. But Lina shook her head. "I'm not leaving him." The forest stilled again. The adults, confused, frightened, saw a girl standing between a wolf and a world too quick to pull a trigger. "She's his mother," Lina said, voice trembling but clear. "And she's not dangerous. I helped her son. That's all." A camera, strapped to a ranger's chest, captured it all. The girl in muddy boots and leaves in her hair. The wild mother staring down trained dogs. The injured cub leaning into the girl's leg as if it were the safest place on earth. And then the twist. The mother wolf, without being prompted, lowered her head. She touched her nose to Lina's foot. Once. Then, with regal grace, she turned. Echo looked up at Lina, blinked slowly, and followed. Together, they disappeared into the trees, like smoke folding back into the mountain mist. No growl, no chase. Just gone. Leaving the girl standing alone in a circle of stunned silence. The clip went viral. Again. A child, an injured wolf pup, a wild mother, and the moment the rescue team was asked to stand down, by a 10-year-old girl. Journalists called her the Whisperer. Scientists debated the behavior. Animal rights groups praised her courage. But Lina didn't care about the headlines. That night, back home, she sat in her room, washed and safe, and stared out the window into the woods. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just whispered, like a prayer. "Take care of him. Please." And out in the dark, where the trees sighed in sleep, something answered her. Not in words, but in the rustle of leaves. A sound only she would ever understand. Seasons shifted. The forest shed its leaves and grew them back again, year after year. And just like that, time, quiet and uninvited, moved on. Lina did too. She grew taller, her eyes a little wiser. Her hands no longer carried the innocence of a child, but something else. Quiet strength. She never forgot what happened in the woods that day. Not the scar on Echo's leg. Not the warmth of his breath under her hand. Not the way his mother looked at her. Like a creature who had just met someone worth trusting. And each year, when autumn came, Lina returned to the forest. She never brought a camera. Only a scarf. And a sandwich. And a notebook. Just in case. She left them on the same mossy stone near the old clearing. And then she waited. Sometimes for an hour. Sometimes until dusk. But Echo never came. Not at first. Then, on the eve of her 16th birthday, something changed. The sun had dipped below the ridgeline. The sky blushed a gentle orange. Lina was ready to leave, brushing pine needles from her jeans, when she heard it. A low, familiar sound. Not quite a growl. Not quite a whine. Her breath caught in her throat. She turned slowly, and there he was, standing just beyond the brush. Older now. Taller. Fur darker with age and life. But the scar was still there. Faint and silver along his hind leg. His eyes locked with hers. Golden. Deep. Familiar. He took a single step forward, then another, and then he ran, right into her arms. Lina fell to her knees as Echo barreled into her, tail whipping like a metronome, nose pushing into her shoulder. Her arms wrapped around his thick fur, tears already falling. "You came back," she whispered. "You remembered." He licked her face. Then something else moved behind him. Two smaller shapes. Cubs. Echo stepped aside, looking back at them, then at her, as if introducing his family. Lina's chest tightened. "You brought them," she said, voice cracking. "You wanted them to meet me." One cub approached cautiously, ears pinned, until Echo nudged it forward. The little one sniffed her hand, then nuzzled against her knee. A sound escaped her lips. Half laugh, half sob. The forest exhaled around them. That photo, taken by a ranger who had followed from afar, not interfering, would become a mural on the side of the town library. The girl who waited. The wolf who returned. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was memory, myth, and truth, all woven into one. Lina didn't chase fame. She didn't do interviews. She just kept returning. Each year. Same stone, same sandwich, same silence. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, she'd hear a low, familiar call in the distance. She'd smile and whisper into the trees, "I remember too."